Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Pilot Lawyer Podcast. Thank you for your attention while this important legal information is reviewed. What you hear should not replace consultation with an attorney and should not be considered advice for your situation. On behalf of the Pilot Lawyer and your entire crew, it's our pleasure to have you aboard.
Welcome, aviators, to the Pilot Lawyer Podcast with us, the Ison brothers at the Ison Law Firm. We're here to help pilots and those who want to become pilots navigate the FAA medical certification process. Around the office, we often say, if you don't laugh, you cry. And for the next 30 minutes, we hope to bring you the lighter side of what can otherwise be a frustrating process. So whether you're laughing at us or with us, join us, brothers, as we discuss the fascinating world of FAA medical certification. Now, I'll note that this little scrap of paper
been with us since the beginning, hasn't it?
That has been with us since the beginning, that we've constantly reading on, this little intro. We've made some edits to it over the years. Year and a half. Has it almost been 2 years? That's scary. Anyhow, we made some edits to it because we used to say that aviation law is all we do. And then we started doing a little, we dabble. Okay, we dabble in some TSA defense, right? We have another attorney who primarily and solely handles that for us, but we do derive some profit from it. So we can't say aviation law is all we do anymore, right? So we edited it, this little scrap of paper, to say we are here to help pilots and those who want to become pilots navigate the FAA medical certification process. And we wrote it in red. Or was it green? I can't tell.
I think it was red. I'm disturbed by how much darker that piece of paper is compared to the piece of paper that was just printed earlier today.
We're back from lunch. That's the most. We're back from lunch. If you're listening from episode to episode, we're back. Number two.
Well, they don't know that.
Christopher was trying to lay up the idea that his long and winding road to getting to the point that he wrote something in red. Is it green? Suggesting that he has color vision problems, which is the topic of today's post-lunch discussion. It's a weird metaverse.
Was that lunch or a snack?
Well, it's a weird metaverse because we haven't actually gone to lunch yet. That's next. So this will be a quick one. Starting January 1, 2025, the FAA, the federales, as some may call them,
Fed government.
feds, have decided that they're going to change up how they handle color vision testing, screening, processing, and so on and so forth.
You don't get a whole lot of calls on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like...
It's because they had you roped, bound, and gagged on what your...
Oh, my.
Yes. On what your possibilities were. With your... Oh, my. This is so dumb, but, we have to do it.
Somebody's got to talk about
So the idea, though, is that, if I may.
Please.
The idea is that previously you didn't have a lot of options. If you failed color vision testing, and I'll walk you through what it looked like. The thing is, though, so you didn't really have much leeway one way or the other. But then they recently said, people are cheating too much. This is primarily, it's my understanding, the changes have been because people are just cheating too much.
How do you cheat?
Well, it's like if you had the Ishihara plates and you had these other types of tests, people could kind of muddle their way through. Now I never.
It's kind of like the eye exam chart.
Just a disclaimer for the federals that are listening, because we know you listen. We've never encouraged anybody to do this. We maybe have seen people have done it on the back end and felt the wrath of the federal government. But that being said, I guess the concern was that people were memorizing the charts. It was like for other ophthalmological issues, we know that the big letter at the top is an E.
Yeah.
Right. So
so they've just memorized all of them.
Christopher's learning something.
Yeah, he's like, oh my gosh, I could have done this the whole time?
You telling me that's an E? I guess that presupposes you understand the alphabet.
Man.
Yeah, they do it with little kids.
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't. should
That looks like a duck.
I should feign some knowledge of that. Keep up my appearance of knowing things. So that being said, used to be real. If it's not colored in crayon, I can't read it.
Red or green, you're screwed.
So that being said, may I?
Please.
So it used to be real convoluted, and you would get a color vision test at every medical exam, right? And if you failed the color vision test, it depended on what class medical certificate you were trying to get. If you failed it, though, you would get a restriction on your medical certificate. And essentially, you couldn't operate at night or by color vision signal, right? Color vision signal. And so essentially, we would say not valid for night flying or by color vision signal control, right? So that's what the restriction would say on your medical.
Now, granted, I'm not down at the airport 24/7, right? But how often? Yeah. How often are people getting the color gun? I mean, I would like to know that statistic. You hear about it in training.
ChatGPT. Just pull it out. I'm just going to whip it out here.
You whip that out.
And ChatGPT.
Cops here so quick.
And I'm going to say, how often are ATC towers having...
I mean, they did...
Okay,
listen, I'm going to blow a hole now through one of America's most beloved Christmas movies, Die Hard 2.
Correct.
You mean to tell me they couldn't have gotten those planes down with a light gun?
Probably not, but from ChatGPT.
We had to go through all that, right. Blow up a plane to create a fire.
Quote. And now the query to ChatGPT, how often are ATC towers having to provide color vision signals to pilots? Quote, ATC towers rarely need to provide color vision signals to pilots. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, they've heard it from the
I think they've heard it from the mouth of babes. So I think the obviously, though, it's the ability to be able to do so, which is hey, well... If you're in this emergency situation, you got to be at peak
they
performance.
Have to get out in Die Hard too, like Christopher said. You're not getting it out.
So it used to be, you'd have that limitation, and then you could, as I understand it, you could take any, and as we've seen, you could take pretty much any test your AME had to offer there. Like if you could just kind of like do everything you could at the AME's office to try and pass a color vision test. If you couldn't do it. By the time I leave this room, son, you'd better get something down. And if you couldn't, they would put this restriction, right? So if you couldn't pass the AME exam, then you could move on to the operational color vision test, the OCVT. And essentially, if you successfully completed the OCVT, the FAA would issue to you a letter of evidence saying, hey, yeah, this old boy... old gal, she was able to do it, so on. And in that case, the FAA would remove the color vision limitation on your medical certificate. The problem, though, is that it got a little bit more dicey in that the OCVT changed based on what class certificate you had. So if you had a third class medical certificate, for example, you'd have to do a signal light test during the day. You'd have to read aeronautical chart. And you'd have to be able to discern certain colors and so on to be able to get that restriction removed. But if you were doing the OCVT for a first or second class, you'd have to do the OCVT that you do for a third class, but you'd also have to undergo a medical flight test at the FSDO. That's essentially where you get in and go fly with the ASI, and they say, yeah, this old boy or this old gal was able to do it.
SOTA, right?
Letter of eligibility. Are you listening? You just shouting out letters.
Well, isn't that a statement of demonstrated ability?
In theory, SOTA. So the thing was, and the problem here was that you could only take the OCVT once. You could only take it during the day, one time during the day, and if you fail, you could take it one time at night. The problem there was that it wasn't something you could really challenge. So like if you failed the OCVT during the day, you wouldn't be able to upgrade it to a first or second class medical with a letter of eligibility. But if you failed the medical flight test, you wouldn't be permitted to upgrade to a first or second class really at all, right? So if you went, for the color vision standards. So all that to be said, you really, to be successful with like a first class, you had to pass both. And the problem there was there's really no way to challenge it. We had one case that I can recall where there was an issue with the OCVT. The FAA said, well, sorry, pound sand. We're not going to let you do that again because, again, it's a one-time ordeal. And we went in there and said, well, hey, the FSDO was administering the light gun signal test. They didn't stand at the appropriate distance from the airmen, and there was some nuance there. And the FAA actually let the person take the OCVT again, which was largely unheard of. But is this something where those were kind of like, it is what it is type of thing? So there's a lot of concern that if you went in there, you couldn't pass the test with AME, and then you had to go take the OCVT, and then I couldn't take the OCVT successfully, and then that just really gummed up the works, and you only get one shot at it. And so then it would end up in spots where airmen would go to AMEs that, hey, I know I can pass this AME's color vision test because I've done it before, but I don't know if I'd be able to do it somewhere else. And so it kind of made the testing less standardized. And, if the AME was ill or sick or couldn't see the person, then it put them in jeopardy that, I got to go take this other test. It was just, it wasn't standard enough, I think, for the FAA, and it did lend itself to people being maybe anomalous. So, again, it was just such the same thought process remained in place, but the FAA then said, hey, well, you know what? We're going to get rid of all that. Let's just get rid of it. And now what they've done, starting Jan 1, 2025, the year of our Lord, as Christopher shuffles papers and finally decides to learn about what the changes are all about, the FAA is now requiring digital color vision testing to be done at the AME's office. Now, Alex, as a doctor...
That sounds like that's just going to be expensive for the AME to put in place.
It's a cost we can
pass on to the consumer.
Pass on to the pilots. Yeah. So I've actually talked to some AMEs that, saying it's kind of cost prohibitive. And, it's it's kind of a hassle to get the stuff. And
yeah, I can't imagine that. I mean...
Hey, ask ChatGPT how much a digital whatchamacallit costs.
Dear sirs. How much does...
We don't identify as sirs here in the AI region.
Keep talking while I input the inquiry.
Has your FAA medical certificate been denied? Are you concerned you may not be able to get a medical certificate from the FAA? Are you at risk for FAA action for failing to report your medical history appropriately? Call the pilot lawyer at 1-855-FAA-1215 to discuss your options for getting the FAA to issue your medical certificate and get you flying. We are happy to evaluate your case and discuss with you a plan for presenting your case to the AME or the FAA. Aviation law is all we do, nothing else.
So? As Anthony has
expounded upon
in a non-succinct manner, we're now in a new day and age.
Color vision standards.
You're going to have to see a little bit better than you did the day before.
So, take back everything we just said.
Not expensive or dangerous.
One such approved test is the Wagoner Computerized Color Vision Test, which operates on a subscription model.
All right.
Reports indicate that the subscription fee for AMEs is approximately $30 per month. But I don't know. It says it's important to note that subscription fee is separate from the additional costs associated with necessary hardware.
Yeah.
Such as compatible computer or tablet and a calibrated monitor to ensure accurate color representation.
I bet you that.
Testing.
Well, his screen wasn't right.
Yeah, his screen was all.
It was an old. It was an old plasma.
Look at Alex over here coming up with these lawyer thoughts.
Hey, listen.
When he's heard us worry about stuff,
right?
What are we
finally catching on. Oh my God! Why did I wake up this morning?
So when you said you talked to AMEs who said this would be
to A.
the truth comes out.
But even still, I met this guy, I think it was the Wagoner guy at a conference. Somebody had introduced me to him.
We spoke once.
And I don't think he saw...
Whoa. You actually met the Wagoner?
Yeah, I met him. Wasn't that...
I think it was a salesman.
No, I think it was like the guy had invented it or something. He was like a big hot shot. All the AMEs were wanting to get to him. And someone like...
and you just
like the Michael Jackson of the eye world.
It's like Indiana Jones bumping into Hitler.
yeah, pretty much.
So
you're Hitler in this.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. Sorry. So this guy pulled me over, this guy that we all know and love, that's a competitor, if you will, pulled this guy. This guy was talking to other AMEs that could actually buy his product. And he like pulled him over and said, hey, I want to introduce you to Anthony Ison. And this guy had nothing to do with me. It's like, this is painful. I'm missing out on $30s per month over here. And this guy is dragging me away to talk to this attorney. So I do have some general, but they were demoing it there at that. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Alex was there.
Was this that thing in Chicago that I wasn't able to make it to?
You weren't able to make
Correct.
Where was I?
You just didn't want to go.
Yeah.
No.
He said, I've got too much other stuff to do than to go to that.
Oh, that's right. Work.
Yeah.
Well, I know what that's like. Sometimes you have to pound the flesh, though, in order to facilitate the work.
It's press the flesh.
That's where we lose the clean rating at.
Pound the pavement.
Pound the pavement, press the flesh. If you're pounding the flesh, you're doing it wrong.
I've certainly pounded the pavement. Pounded it.
You're beating the hell out of it.
Jackhammer. That being said. So you're going to take these digital tests now. Now, the interesting thing about it, the good news is, if you've held a medical certificate, okay, you no longer have to take this test.
What now?
If you hold a medical certificate, you no longer have to take any color vision testing. They've essentially said you're not going to become... Now, there are some nuances. Excuse me. There are some random medical conditions that they might say, well, you're liable to becoming colorblind.
You lost an eye. You put it back in.
Sure.
Retested.
You had a vision transplant. Sure. That being
Vision transplant.
eye transplant.
There you go.
Well, that being said...
I was pounding the flesh.
So, pounded the pavement too hard.
Knocked the eyeball out.
So...
We had a dog that happened to once.
That's a true story.
Yep.
An eyeball popped
What
out
if we
of the
just had a
socket.
podcast where we didn't talk about anything serious? I mean, I think that's where
We should talk about
this is where we're
that's
at.
where this is going.
the randomness of our lives.
So if you held like a third class, for example, you don't have to take color vision again for third class. Now, here's the nuance. If you want to upgrade, you have to take it, son.
Do what now?
You have to take it, son.
So
if you're like
I'm on a third and I'm going to go to first.
You've got to take it. Now the question is,
What if I want to downgrade?
Yeah. Well,
I just want to go down.
you're gonna have to take it, son. Now, so if you're a new pilot, you've never applied for it, you're gonna have to take the test. Now, the question is that I have for you is what will happen to the folks that took the OCVT and were successful? I know the answer. This is a trick question. Let's see if you can fill in the blank, Christopher. What's going to happen to those people that took the OCVT, have a letter of evidence, or the SOTA, Statement of Demonstrated Ability?
Thank you.
What's going to happen to those folks?
It would seem to me they wouldn't have to do anything because they've already demonstrated it.
They're going to...
Perfect answer. Oops.
I'll take either one.
Yeah. Yep. So if you had an OCVT or a letter, you did that, or a medical flight test, you have a letter of evidence or SOTA, you'll be grandfathered in. So that's not, now it's still for the same class though.
That's when, that's the best type of being grandfathered
If you took
in,
the OCVT for third class, but didn't take the medical flight test for the first class, you're going to be down there taking that. Now, what they were telling people, they announced this in December, and they're like, "Oh, you better get down there and take your OCVT quickly so you can be grandfathered in." And, because I guess the thought process was that maybe you could do better on that. You can't beat the digital testing. Wagoner, he said, you know what?
They don't charge $30 a month
for nothing.
For something that can be manipulated.
That's like a lunch.
That's a fraction of a lunch.
That's
boy.
It probably is not even $30 a month. I mean, it's who knows how accurate ChatGPT is there on that.
Yeah, we're not saying that that's how much it costs. But AvWeb.
They gave us something to talk about.
AvWeb, that was their quote. I'm quoting avweb.com.
Well, now you're giving us
an air of legitimacy.
Now I can say to old Mr. Chat, tell me more about the. Now, a lot of people do this kind of research before they go on the podcast.
No, this is stream of consciousness.
This is a question that arose during.
Well, you see like Joe Rogan, he's pulling. Yeah, pull that.
Yeah,
up.
let's compare us.
Yeah.
Pull that up.
To America's #1 podcast.
Well, why not? If you can't shoot for the stars, you shoot for the ground. You know what's going on down there?
Aim
the Wagoner
aim for perfection and achieve excellence. I once had a painter that was painting my house tell me that was his creed. Yeah. Aim for perfection and achieve excellence. I thought, hey, good enough for me. You got the paint on the walls.
The Wagoner Computerized and everywhere else. The Wagoner Computerized Color Vision Test, the WCCBT for short, is a comprehensive suite. Design, which brings me to a funny story.
Ka-ching. Oh,
I won't tell it.
Is that the Specs music?
Yeah. I once called down the Specs music and asked them if they had a copy of the Grand Canyon Suite on CD. And the guy said, "Let me check my system." Right? You hear, keypad going. A few minutes later, I kid you not. A few minutes later, doesn't look like we had the Grand Canyon Suite, but do have the Grand Canyon suit. And I was like 8 years old at the time. I thought, come on, dude. Do better. All right. So it's a comprehensive suite designed to assess color vision deficiencies across various populations, from pediatric to adult patients. It offers multiple testing methods, including screening and in-depth diagnostics to identify both congenital and acquired color vision deficiencies, detailing their type and severity.
Ka-ching, ka-ching.
Validated by the U.S. Navy, accepted by the U.S. Navy, Army, Coast Guard, and Federal Aviation Administration.
Federal government.
WCCBT is recognized for its precision and reliability. The FAA is recommended for pilot screenings, highlighting its credibility and so they've lent some credibility, old Wagoner, by having the FAA. The WCCBT is competitively priced at $999 for a lifetime license. Now we're getting into licensing.
Whoa. How much?
$999 for a lifetime license, reduced from the original $1,299. The one-time purchase allows installation on compatible Windows-based systems, requiring a minimum of Windows 10, 1 gigahertz processing speed, 512 megabytes of RAM, and 4.5 gigabytes of disk space.
I don't think I can keep up with those requirements.
For this baby hits 88 miles an hour.
For those preferring a dedicated service, the WCCBT is available pre-installed on a tablet, priced at $2,195.
They'll make it up in there.
This option ensures optimal performance. So they're really pushing it. We need to sell this tablet. The WCCBT is reimbursable under so you can get money back. Let's see. How easy is it to cheat the WC? Not that you shouldn't cheat anything. I'm trying to test the reliability of the programs the federal government's put into place.
Well, I think it's a legitimate question for purposes of
especially
standardization.
If they're touting this because too many people are cheating.
Here, the WCCBT is specifically designed to minimize the possibility of cheating or manipulation. Here are some reasons why it's difficult to cheat this test.
Please tell.
And do not cheat your tests. Randomized testing. The WCCBT uses randomized sequences of stimuli for its assessments, which reduces the ability to predict the test pattern or memorize answers. So instead of having charts, right, where I know what the color, I can figure that out.
What if you're Rain Man? I mean, like...
Or you just don't have color vision problems.
Green. Definitely green. Green.
Dynamic testing environment. The test relies on precise color calibrations and requires accurate color display equipment, such as the deal you're getting on that doorbuster at $21.99. Attempts to manipulate screen settings or use assistive software would likely alter the results and be detectable. So you can't manipulate that computer. Many tests within the WCCBT have built-in time limits to ensure responses are genuine. Oh, if someone takes too long, it might indicate an attempt to decode the test rather than naturally perceive the color. So if you're sitting there and you spent a little too much time on this one. You sure you spilled your coffee on you while you were doing it and that delayed you. You spent a little too much time on it.
You might be able to get a mulligan
There
on
are
that one.
several more items here that suggest that, now I don't think it's just the WCCBT that they're offering. So there are a few other digital testing, but that's the big one.
If you pay the $2,100 for the tablets, you still have to pay the $30 a month.
I don't know. You got that lifetime license.
Is this like a gym membership where you have to, give a sign-up fee and then an annual fee and then a monthly fee?
Okay, so there is some cost associated, but that's neither here nor there to the airmen. They don't really give two flips about what it's going to cost the AME.
Well, it might if it ever just becomes cost prohibitive, get your medical.
Well, sooner or later, the AME is going to make their money back on that tablet.
Well, from what I understand, there are other digital testing. So the WCCBT, which we just flogged, and we just did pretty much an infomercial. and then
now Wagoner has reason to shake your hand next time you bump into him.
This old boy. So there's that. The Rabin cone contrast test.
Have you met Rabin?
Not yet.
That guy's a hoot.
He keeps going down these Rabin cones. Evaluates the function of 3 types of cone photoreceptors in the eye, providing a detailed assessment of color vision capability. A score of 75 or higher for each is necessary. And then the City Occupational Couleur, that must be Canadian.
Is it
COLOUR? I don't like that. Now, I don't mind tire with a Y, but color with a U, give me a break. Assessment and diagnosis. This assesses color discrimination thresholds to detect and classify vision color deficiencies. For the full definitive CAD test, a red-green score of less than 12 and a yellow-blue score of less than 2.4 are required. So all that to be said, we're phasing out the Ishihara plates, and we're getting in there with some new digital testing that you'll see. Now, I just don't think so. I think the problem is it's going to weed out folks, and then it's going to turn into a question. Well, what happens if I fail it? I don't think they've answered that well enough. I think they're gonna try to draw a hard line, right?
Well, is there a regulation that can tie to the disqualification of the airmen on this basis?
Yes, there is, and I think you could probably say, well, if you here's what I would say.
Say it.
If you were previously able to say that we felt as though your color vision was deficient on these tests that you were capable of manipulating, and you failed it, and we allowed you to go take these variance tests, the OCVT and the medical flight test, there's no reason why they shouldn't allow that to continue, in my opinion. Why wouldn't they? If they're saying previously, hey, you were colorblind.
Mr. Ashton, that is a lucid, well thought out, coherent argument.
Overruled.
So what I'm trying to get at here is, if you got an extra $2,500 laying around, you could become an AME and have the WCBT.
It's the money in a little tablet.
Yeah. So you got something to think about now. You got something to think about. Well, Alex, you got anything to add?
No.
Christopher, you got anything to add?
There's a guy here on Facebook selling a quarter share and a Piper Arrow 2 for $25,000, but it looks a little rough, so I'm probably gonna pass.
Pass.
Yeah.
If it flies, if it flies, we won't get into that.
No, you don't. You don't. That's a different podcast.
Just take out where
Joe Rogan could probably sell that joke, but you're not gonna be able to sell that joke.
Just take out the fly stuff, folks. Okay, well, I think that. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Unfortunately.
I see it in living color.
Yeah. Don't put on your rose-colored glasses when you read about this one.
Yeah.
How many people can we offend? I think that should be the name of the podcast. All right. That's about it. You need to be on the lookout.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.